picture this. The boardroom went dead quiet. 200 eyes locked onto the whiteboard. An 8-year-old girl stood there, chalk in hand, cracking a math problem that had baffled the startup's top tech experts for 3 full weeks. CEO Elena Whitmore gripped the edge of the polished conference table so hard her knuckles turned stark white. Her little girl wasn't supposed to be here. Little Sophie had strolled in from the lobby, studied the board with quiet focus, walked right up to the front of the corporate space, and simply started doing the math. Not one executive stopped her. Nobody had a clue what to say. "Where did you learn this?" The CEO's voice snapped out harsher than she meant to. Those words sliced through the heavy room like a rock hitting glass. Sophie slowly turned away from the board. Her little face was totally calm, chalk still pinched in her fingers. "Leo down in the basement taught me." Elena felt the room spin. "Who is Leo?" Elena had taken the CEO title at 29. She was the youngest leader this tech company ever had. Her data analytics firm took up 3 levels of a shiny Manhattan glass tower, where secret algorithms forecasted everything from stock trends to big government spending. Elena built her whole career on iron control and a freakish knack for spotting patterns the suits missed. Older executives twice her age always bowed to her decisions. Wealthy investors flew across the country just to sit with her. But there was one truth she had learned to bury deep. At 23, pregnant and ditched by a guy who thought a kid ruined his personal brand, the future CEO made a hard choice. She was going to win big, not despite being a single mom, but because of the absolute fire it sparked. She would be utterly unstoppable. She'd never give those boardroom executives a reason to doubt. Sophie would get everything. Money, chances, and a mother who never lost, never broke down, and never showed a single crack in her armor. The girl was 8 now. She had her mother's piercing eyes, plus a heavy silence that scared Elena more than she ever dared to admit. The kid crushed it at school, always grabbing high praise from her teachers, but she barely had friends. She picked puzzles over playgrounds, real math over noise. She spent recess buried in books or solving wild logic tests she pulled off the web, always sitting just apart from the other kids. It broke the CEO's heart every time the school sent home those weekly class pictures. Elena swore this was fine. Sophie was laser-focused and driven exactly like her mom. But here is what the boss didn't know about the last 4 months. Sophie spent her afternoons hiding down in the corporate building's basement level, down in those rough concrete hallways smelling of bleach and rusted pipes, where a guy named Leo Grant scrubbed the floors and dumped the trash. Leo was 36, packing the kind of rough, beaten-down face that proved he had lived through way more hell than most guys his age. He wore the cheap gray uniform of building maintenance. He drifted through the office like a ghost, keeping his mouth totally shut. Most high-paid startup employees never even learned his name. You and I know everyone has a past. Leo had one hell of a story. Just 5 years back, he was actually the company's head AI engineer. He was the master builder behind the data models that made this exact tech firm stupidly rich. He was the actual genius who coded the core algorithms still powering every single product those executives sold today. Let's be honest, he was a father in the ways that actually counted, completely devoted to his young son Tyler. Tyler was born with a severe heart defect, demanding constant medical monitoring and expensive trips to a top-tier specialist who definitely wasn't cheap. Then came the disaster night. Leo was alone in the data center around 11:30 p.m., quickly spotting a dangerous failure inside the main hardware cooling systems. Heat levels were spiking across every server. The day shift had completely ignored critical warning alerts. He triggered an immediate system kill. He killed the whole corporate network using pure gut instinct and a master-level grasp of the exact architecture he personally built from scratch. The massive server farm survived, but taking the grid down cost the company $3 million in massive corporate penalties. The chief technology officer, William Chen, desperately needed a scapegoat. Leo actually made the perfect technical call, a truth hidden deep inside data logs that the boss quickly locked away. To guys like William, the optics meant everything. The real crime was a brilliant guy acting without permission, making the corporate balance sheet bleed. Days later, Leo was fired for unauthorized interference that allegedly caused massive financial damage. They held his final paycheck hostage behind silence. His stellar industry reputation was trashed. Just like that, his tech career evaporated. Follow me here. Leo took a menial cleaning gig just for the health insurance and flexible hours his sick boy desperately needed. He became a janitor in the exact same building where he used to write code. He crossed paths with little Sophie on a cool Tuesday in autumn. She was waiting for her CEO mom in the lobby, watching him push a heavy supply cart. Shards of glass covered the floor from a smashed lobby display. Without speaking, the 8-year-old dropped down and calmly sorted the broken shards perfectly by size. "You don't have to do that," Leo told her softly. "I know, but patterns are easier when things are organized." Her calm tone sparked a memory of Tyler, that exact same logic. That heavy loneliness of possessing a brilliant mind that operates completely differently than average corner office people. Acting on pure instinct, Leo grabbed a cheap paper napkin from his cleaning cart and quickly drew a tough math puzzle. "Can you solve this?" The little girl's eyes suddenly sparked, totally transforming her bored expression. For the first time in forever, something outside the executive penthouse finally gave her a real challenge. And that sparked the routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday, while her high-powered mother ran endless boardroom meetings upstairs, Sophie took the elevator down to the basement, tracking Leo through the dark concrete halls. She would sit down on a plastic bucket, cracking whatever complex engineering problem he had mapped out that day. He simply listened to her young brain process logic while sweeping, occasionally dropping a clever hint that pushed her toward a brilliant breakthrough. Sometimes just letting comfortable silence hang between the two outcasts. He never treated her like a child. He never shot down her math without challenging her to explain the logic behind it. You see, real geniuses never make a kid feel stupid, and he never rushed her. Over the weeks, you and I could see the problems evolve. Leo quietly mapped the brilliant shape of her mind. During that first month, he handed her logic puzzles drawn on cheap paper napkins. Brilliant mazes of pure logic. To find the right answer, you simply eliminated the impossible. By month 2, he started slipping in complex concepts from pure number theory. He framed them as games, never boring lessons. Can you find a number that, when multiplied by absolutely any other number out there, just hands the original number right back? Sophie stared hard at the tiles for 3 full minutes before quietly answering, 1. Leo nodded slowly. He treated her answer like a fascinating insight, not something obvious. Now, why does that work? Nobody ever asked Sophie to explain her genius before. Right then, she felt a massive door unlock inside her mind. By month 3, Leo was sketching brilliant diagrams on the bare concrete using chalk, real fractals. Infinite recursive patterns, beautiful Fibonacci spirals tracing a simple nautilus shell he found at the local weekend market. He would begin a complex sequence, intentionally leaving it unfinished. He watched her young eyes track the math, waiting until she saw exactly where it naturally went next. Whenever she got the next step wrong, he would simply ask her. Very gently, he asked her to explain why she believed her version was correct. Usually, just by talking through her logic, she caught her own brilliant mistakes. Tyler occasionally wandered down on days his after-school program let out early. The two prodigies worked side by side in perfect silence while Leo quietly finished his cleaning rounds, mopping floors and emptying trash bins right nearby. Tyler was still bouncing back from surgery, getting exhausted way faster than he ever admitted. But the kid possessed a razor-sharp intellect of his own. His unique gift for spatial reasoning perfectly matched Sophie's talent for high-level abstract logic. They quickly developed a silent, unspoken language of pointing and subtle nodding that required no boardroom suits to solve an impossible equation. Meanwhile, let's look at the CEO. Elena stood upstairs, glaring at the digital employee directory. Leo Grant, janitor, no corporate photo, absolutely zero credentials listed, just a start date from 8 months ago. Her polished assistant popped into the doorway. Building management just phoned us up. They demand to discuss immediate disciplinary action. Against who? The maintenance guy who is, quote, engaging in unauthorized contact with executive family members. A heavy, freezing panic immediately settled deep inside Elena's chest. Schedule a meeting right now. I need to speak with him first. Down in the basement, the tech company smelled of harsh bleach and damp concrete. The CEO had never stepped foot down here. Her executive floors were all pristine glass and expensive art. But down here, ugly painted cinder blocks and cheap fluorescent lights buzzing like angry hornets. She found Leo inside a dusty little storage room. He sorted simple cleaning supplies with the exact brilliant precision her expensive engineers applied to software. "Mr. Grant," he turned around slowly. You could see absolutely zero surprise in his eyes. The man clearly anticipated this exact corporate showdown. "You are teaching my daughter. I am merely answering her curious questions." "There is a massive difference." Elena's jaw clenched hard. "You have zero right." "To do what?" His voice remained quiet but rock solid. "Treat her like she's actually intelligent. Provide challenges that actually engage her mind. Your young daughter is brilliant, Miss Whitmore. When was the absolute last time you actually asked what she's curious about?" Those words struck the CEO much harder than she'd admit. Elena pictured her 8-year-old daughter at dinner last week. Her face was completely lit up. Babbling about complex math and recursive patterns, the kid spoke more than she had in months. Elena had just smiled and nodded, her CEO brain already reviewing tomorrow's boardroom schedule. "Building management wants you written up," Elena told the janitor. "They say you broke protocol." "I know. Why hide who you are, that you actually work here?" Would it have mattered? The powerful executive had no answer. She turned to walk away, then stopped. Her warning came out sharper than she intended. "Just stay away from my daughter." Heading to the executive elevator, a strange guilt washed right over her. It was that look the janitor gave her, not angry or sorry, just purely disappointed. The exact look of a smart man expecting better yet unsurprised by a boardroom suit. The CEO couldn't drop it. That night, with her daughter asleep, she called Serena. "I need you to run a deep background check immediately." Leo Grant, janitor, hired exactly 8 months ago. Serena called back just before midnight. "Elena, you really need to see this." The file was small but absolutely explosive. Leo Grant was once a lead systems engineer at Predictix, fired 5 years ago for severe negligence causing major losses. The corporate report claimed he triggered an unauthorized emergency, a system shutdown bypassing all executive approvals. Let's look closer. The raw technical logs from that exact night were completely missing. Elena dug into the archive servers. Only she and William had the clearance. She hunted for the exact date Leo was fired. The data was there but locked tight by executive order, William's direct order. At 3 in the morning, the CEO sat in the dark, reading raw code the boardroom wanted hidden. She had smashed right through William's lock using her CEO access. The hidden logs proved the official corporate story was a complete and total lie. Temperature sensors flashing critical failure, cooling systems dead across 3 whole server banks. The janitor's emergency shutdown was the only smart move. Without his genius, the whole server farm would have burned down. $3 million in losses avoided a $300 million data disaster. Yet the executives blamed the engineer instead of their cheap cooling system. The lie was signed by William Chen himself. Her phone suddenly buzzed with a text from building management. "Per your orders, Leo Grant's building access is suspended pending formal review." She never gave any such order. The next morning, Elena walked in. William was already waiting in her boardroom, flanked by 2 corporate directors. He pushed a folder across the table. "We need to talk about corporate data security. We noticed you've been poking around in highly classified personnel files." Elena held a perfect poker face. "Those files involve core operations. As CEO, that is my job. The files were sealed to protect us legally. Opening them creates a liability or exposes one." The board members traded nervous looks. William's cold smile never touched his eyes. "I recommend we enforce stricter security protocols. You see how they protect themselves? No common staff allowed near executives or families. It's a liability issue the executives were boxing her in. If the CEO fought back, she'd have to explain why a humble janitor's employee record mattered so much. But giving in meant Leo and her daughter Sophie were permanently separated, tearing him away from a second chance he'd never truly had. Elena pictured Sophie's face lighting up while talking about fractals. A pure, brilliant spark in her eyes that had been missing for years. "Draft the policy," Elena murmured. "I'll review it." By afternoon, a corporate memo dropped. Strict new security protocols. Janitorial crews would only work overnight shifts. Zero contact with daytime staff during business hours. Elena convinced herself it was just business. You and I know that corporate lie. She blocked out what this meant for little Sophie. Down in the basement, Leo read the new directive. The brilliant custodian read it twice, folded it neatly, and stashed it away. He had exactly 2 hours left on his shift. He found Sophie in her usual corner, waiting just outside the executive boardroom, slogging through a basic math worksheet that was 3 grade levels below her actual genius. "Hey, sport," he kept his tone breezy. She looked up and her smile died reading his expression. "I won't be around for a bit," Leo murmured. "Strict new corporate rules." "Because of me?" "No, because grown-ups love making simple things complicated." The custodian knelt beside her chair. "I need you to remember something important. Keep learning, keep asking those questions. Not because managers demand it, or to impress anyone, but because you absolutely love it, because it sparks your soul. Can you promise me that?" The young prodigy teared up, but she nodded slowly. Leo stood up, fighting a tight throat. He'd lost a brilliant career once. He could easily survive losing this job. But watching this 8-year-old genius dim her own spark to fit standard corporate expectations, that was vastly harder to walk away from than any pink slip. The secret math expert left the tech building that evening, never returning. Stick with me here. 3 weeks later, their predictive models quietly failed. Market forecasts slipped by tiny fractions. Resource allocation algorithms showed slight, unexplained drift. Nothing totally catastrophic on paper, but the CEO caught the pattern and instantly knew the truth. The core algorithms were rapidly degrading. She called panicked emergency meetings and doubled the engineering department's hours. She hired expensive outside tech consultants, but the algorithmic drift only continued. The fatal flaw was buried deep inside the system architecture, completely beyond her elite team's grasp. Meanwhile, back at home, young Sophie quit doing her advanced math problems. She cranked out basic schoolwork with robotic precision, then just sat staring blankly at her wall. Her teacher called Elena twice. "Sophie seems totally disconnected." She used to shout out answers and help her classmates. Now she barely even participates. Elena tried desperately to reach her daughter, asking about class, her friends, her weekend plans. Sophie just gave polite single-word answers. That brief, beautiful spark of genius was completely gone. One evening, Elena caught Sophie at the kitchen table, clutching a crumpled paper napkin. It was covered in tiny, meticulous handwriting, a complex logic puzzle half solved in the child's careful print. "Do you miss the janitor?" Elena whispered. "He made things make sense," Sophie whispered. The real genius was gone. He proved that true brilliance isn't something you ever have to hide. Elena felt her heart shatter. For 8 years, she pushed to give her daughter the perfect life. But she never once paused to ask what Sophie truly needed. Next morning, Serena walked into Elena's office with a look you and I instantly recognize. The news was massive. I dug deeper into the programmer's file. "You have to see this." Serena dropped a stack of papers, the original unedited incident report. The insurance investigation hidden deep inside a buried folder. An email thread from 5 years ago. William writing to the investigator. "Close this as human error, not equipment failure. Protecting our brand is critical." The investigator wrote back, "The data proves the hardware failed. We won't lie. Williams will find a way or find a new client." The final report blamed the brilliant Underdog. That payout saved the tech company's image. And the executive built his shiny corporate career on that massive lie. Elena sank back into her chair. Anger and deep shame flooded her chest. Think about that. She had enforced the very corporate rules that kept the truth buried. She had punished the actual genius all over again. Not 5 years ago, but last month. She ignored a memo because fighting back would have been bad for her career. "Where is he now?" she asked. "I have his address. Industrial zone, 40 minutes out." Elena snatched her coat. "Cancel my entire afternoon. Come with me." The apartment building was neat, hidden between warehouses in Long Island City. Elena hiked up 3 flights of stairs and knocked on door 3C. A kid answered. Maybe 10 years old, skinny, with cautious eyes that instantly reminded her of little Sophie. The way he studied her, sharp, calculating, and completely lacking trust. "Is your dad around? Who wants to know?" The mastermind stepped behind his son, a quiet hand on his shoulder. Seeing Elena standing there, his face completely shifted. A mix of old defeat and spark. "Tyler, go wrap up your math homework." The kid vanished into the next room. Leo didn't open the door any wider. I read the true incident report, Elena said. I know exactly what William did. I know what you protected, that why you came. A guilty corporate conscience. I'm here because Predictix is failing, the AI algorithms are drifting, we are completely lost. And I'm here because my little girl hasn't smiled in 3 weeks. Elena's voice broke on that last word. She tried to hide it, but failed. I'm here because the boardroom was wrong. I need you. We both need your help. Leo studied her face in silence. What's the offer? Whatever you ask for. Your old job, your title, clearing your name. I don't want that old job. Leo leaned against the frame. But I have 3 conditions. Elena quickly nodded. I'm listening. 1. No more throwing engineers under the bus to protect executives, ever. You build an honest corporate culture or I quit. Agreed. 2. Open the system logs, all of them. No more locked files, no more hiding the truth. When tech fails, you face it. Elena swallowed hard. Done. 3. Sophie keeps learning. Not for a grade, not for an elite school, not to make you look impressive. You let her explore math simply because it brings her joy. And if she wakes up tomorrow and hates it, that's fine. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I can do that. Leo finally stepped away from the door. Looks like we have work to do. You and I know real genius rarely sits in boardrooms. We took over a dusty second-floor space. Elena, Leo, Serena, and a few veteran engineers who remembered what this tech startup used to be. People who still respected Leo. People who spent years quietly wondering why he was pushed out. Elena had also invited someone completely unexpected to this room, Miss Patricia Hewitt, little Sophie's 3rd-grade teacher. Someone who actually paid attention when a brilliantly gifted kid started hiding her own spark. I have no idea why I'm here, Patricia admitted, glancing at the glowing monitors. Because this goes way beyond just patching a broken system, Elena replied. It is about repairing everything we shattered. Leo projected the core system architecture onto the main display. The drift is all happening right inside the predictive layer. Our algorithms are making blind guesses using outdated training data. But the real problem isn't the code, it is the philosophy. He opened old design files, notes from 5 years back, when he first built the original artificial intelligence framework. I built these models to adapt, to learn, and to challenge their own basic assumptions. But after I left, management locked them into rigid rules. They completely stopped evolving. That metaphor hit Elena hard. A boardroom mentality had stifled the system's natural brilliance. For 3 straight days, we worked. Leo explained his original design philosophy. Every single decision wasn't just technical, it was an entirely different mindset. Systems, just like people, need space to question, adapt, and make mistakes without getting thrown away. He taught us exactly how he taught little Sophie, not by lecturing but by asking questions. Drawing napkin diagrams and using simple examples with a totally genuine, unforced patience. Let's be real, we had spent years maintaining an algorithm we never truly understood. We watched Leo now with pure relief and absolute awe. Priya, a young coder hired 2 years after the executives fired Leo, pulled Elena aside. During a break, she whispered to Elena that she always suspected the foundational logic was broken. But she always just figured the problem was her own inexperience. Realizing the core issue was actually philosophical instead of technical, that some terrified executive artificially restricted the code because they feared what it might actually do if it evolved freely, made Priya laugh with a frustrated relief that instantly melted away years of heavy self-doubt. Elena watched this and finally faced the exact metaphor she had been running away from. She spent 8 years restricting Sophie with that same rigid corporate logic, totally afraid of what a truly free, brilliant mind might become, terrified of the raw chaos of genuine curiosity. Day 2, Patricia Hewitt walked in carrying Sophie's school records, dating straight back to 1st grade. Without any hesitation, she scattered them across the massive conference table. I want every executive in this room to see what an absolute genius looks like when forced to stay neatly inside the lines. The files revealed flawless academic scores, right alongside a pile of repetitive behavioral warnings. Sophie seems withdrawn. She refuses to engage normally with the other students. She finishes her work instantly, then just stares blankly out the window. The system blindly logged that staring as a lack of engagement. But Patricia understood the truth. You and I both know it was the exact opposite. You and I know that quiet brilliance. The kind of mind that exhausts basic tasks and constantly hunts for more. By night 4, Tyler and little Sophie showed up. Leo had secretly set it up with Elena. The kids huddled in the corner, supposedly doing homework, but really, they were cracking a complex logic puzzle Leo had sketched out just for them. Elena watched her young daughter lean over the desk, explaining something complex to Tyler. Her little hands moving with intense, rapid purpose. Her face was so brilliantly alive it made Elena's breath catch. Miss Hewitt sat down right beside her. You are a great mom who just made a very common mistake. What mistake? You tried keeping her safe from real struggle. But fighting through a struggle is exactly how we find ourselves. Elena wiped away a tear. I'm learning that. See, geniuses don't wear suits. By Friday, Leo found the core glitch. But fixing it meant tearing up massive chunks of the system's foundation. And they had a massive pitch in 6 days. A $40 million government contract. We can do this, Leo said, but I need the keys, full secure server access. Elena paused for exactly 1 second, then she handed over her admin credentials. Later that night, as Elena packed her bag, little Sophie bolted over and squeezed her tight. Thank you for bringing him back here, Sophie whispered softly. Elena held her brilliant daughter tightly. Thank you for proving that I actually needed to. Of course, the corporate suits found out by day 5. An engineer accidentally let the secret slip during a casual chat. Before Elena even grabbed her morning coffee, an emergency board meeting was already locked in. William guarded the head of the table, 3 empty suits backing him up like a brick wall. You brought Leo Grant back inside. You handed him the keys to our secure systems. No board approval, and a direct breach of his official firing agreement. Elena calmly set her bag on the table. I did it because the systems are crashing, and he is the only mind who can fix them. He is a massive liability. His firing was legally airtight. If he triggers another failure, he never caused the first one. Elena grabbed her tablet. I found the original glitch reports, the real files you actually tried to bury. You faked an entire insurance claim. You completely ruined a true genius to save corporate face. And then you locked up the proof. A suit slowly leaned across the table. William, is this true? Look, it was 5 years ago. I made that choice to protect the company's best interests. You made that decision to save your own job, Elena whispered. And I am done protecting you. William's whole face hardened. If you actually let Leo Grant run this pitch, I will quit and leak everything to the press. Predictix will be drowning in bitter lawsuits, not celebrating some massive government deal. He slowly pulled out his phone. I also took the liberty of totally revamping our security today. Leo Grant's biometrics are flagged. If he steps foot inside, guards will drag him right out. If he tries hitting those servers remotely, the firewall locks him out completely. Listen, boardroom traps shut fast. Elena's massive tech presentation was tomorrow. Without Leo, those system fixes were impossible. No repairs meant kissing that massive enterprise contract goodbye. William knew it perfectly. Elena glanced at Serena, who looked totally pale but rock solid. She checked her phone. A text message from little Sophie lit up the glass screen. Mom, count your breaths like Leo taught me, then just decide. Elena spent her whole career guarding her executive title, playing boardroom politics, and plotting every safe move. She finally stood up. Then you better draft your resignation letter today, William. Because Leo Grant is presenting tomorrow, and so am I. The massive conference hall held 200 people. Government suits and deep-pocketed potential clients. Tech reporters and nervous board members. Elena waited backstage, her hands shaking slightly. Serena stepped right up beside her. William is here, brought reporters too. Of course he did. Leo's biometrics are locked out. Security stopped him at the lobby. Elena just shut her eyes. Then she grabbed her phone and loaded up the company-wide internal broadcast system. In 5 minutes inside Conference Hall A, Predictix will reveal our upgraded predictive software. The presentation will be led by the genius engineer who actually built it. The guy who saved us 5 years ago, the brilliant man we completely failed. Leo Grant, if you're watching this, use my executive security credentials. Elena Whitmore, CEO, come take back your life's work. She hit send. The entire room fell totally silent as Elena took the stage. Thank you all for coming today. We are showing you something amazing. But first, I have to confess a dark truth we've been hiding. For 3 full minutes, Elena spilled the story, hiding nothing. The server crash, the fake data report, William's dirty cover-up, and her own cowardice in keeping it quiet. Picture this. The crowd sat frozen. The brilliant engineer who saved us 5 years ago is here today. And he is going to show you what real integrity actually looks like. The heavy back doors swung open. Leo walked inside with Tyler and Sophie right beside him. He wore a cheap but perfectly clean suit. He looked just like the brilliant professional he was before everything shattered. He walked straight to the stage, and Elena simply stepped aside without hesitation. Leo plugged his simple laptop into the massive boardroom display. "Good morning. My name is Leo Grant. I am going to show you how we fixed a system that never should have broken." For the next 40 solid minutes, he guided those executives through the software architecture with absolute clarity and sharp precision. The data drift, the weak points, the solution. But beyond raw coding details, he broke down the core philosophy. How artificial intelligence, just like humans, needs freedom to challenge its own core assumptions. How digital security relies on open transparency, not corporate secrets. How strong structures demand absolute truth. He showed the fixes live, pulling up real-time data feeds. The models were adapting, fixing themselves, and actively evolving right there. It was pure, undeniable genius. When he finished, the entire boardroom erupted. Elena stepped forward, projecting a toxic corporate email chain from her laptop straight onto the big screen. William's orders burying the truth, plus his nasty threats toward the insurance investigator. The ruthless documented ruin of Leo's career. "William Chen is officially done at Predictix," Elena announced clearly. "He's facing legal now. Real geniuses don't need a boardroom. We will make this right." The government official stood up. "Miss Whitmore, Mr. Grant, the boardroom has spoken. We have everything we need. Expect the final signature by Friday." We always look for brilliance at the top. But that evening, Elena found Leo packing up his notes. The executive skyline sparkled through the glass walls behind him. "The board wants to offer you Chief Technology Officer, full equity, a public apology, whatever you need." Leo gently shook his head. "True genius rarely wants titles. I appreciate it, but no." "Then what? You have 300 regular workers in this building. How many of their kids actually have somewhere safe after school? A real place to explore what actually interests them, not just what tests well." The CEO paused. "I honestly do not know, probably none. I want to start a program, completely free classes for the employees' kids. Math, science, art, whatever they are actually curious about. No grades, no corporate pressure, just pure exploration." A quiet smile crossed his face. "I want to call it Sophie's Lab." Elena instantly felt her throat tighten. "That is a terrible use of corporate resources. Probably. The board will think I am crazy. Definitely. When can you begin?" Sophie's Lab officially opened 6 weeks later in a bright space on the 2nd floor. The room simply smelled like fresh paint and raw possibility. Chalkboard panels covered the walls so absolutely any blank surface could become a working ideas space. There were no boring desks in rows. Only clusters of tables, floor cushions, and one long sturdy workbench across the back wall for creative materials. Modeling clay, circuit boards, graph paper, basic rubber bands, and literally every single color of chalk. Leo spent an entire weekend building it out with young Tyler helping. The two of them carefully measuring, painting, and building. Friendly arguing over the absolute best spot to hang the whiteboard. Tyler and Sophie were the first, but within a single month, 23 children were showing up. Picture this with me: janitors and executives' kids, learning and questioning things together. Leo personally taught 3 evenings every week. Other everyday employees volunteered to lead sessions in their own hidden areas of expertise. The corporate accountant naturally taught basic financial literacy using Pokemon cards. A quiet graphic designer led visual storytelling workshops. A night security guard, who was once a skilled chef, taught fun kitchen chemistry. Elena started leaving the boardroom at 5:30 to pick up Sophie. They walked home together, and little Sophie would talk the entire way about what she had learned. About complex fractals, fractions, and how Tyler easily explains deep astronomy using sticky gummy bears. These walks became the absolute best part of Elena's entire day. She actually found herself extending the route on evenings when Sophie was particularly fired up. choosing the longer scenic way home through the park so the brilliant conversation had more room. One evening, Sophie casually brought up a local science competition, Math in Motion. You build a physical model demonstrating a complex mathematical concept, something real that you can touch. Tyler and I really want to enter it together. We are turning the very first puzzle Leo gave me into a kinetic sculpture, something you can actually touch, solve, and watch move. She held out a paper napkin, creased and worn, covered in her careful little sketches. Is that perfectly okay? You and I know true brilliance when we see it. Elena looked at her daughter's bright eyes, the sketch, and the pure joy of creating something real. It is more than okay, it is absolutely perfect. Let's step inside a university auditorium for the Math in Motion finals. Elena sat right between Leo and Miss Hewitt. She watched Tyler and Sophie carefully set their brilliant sculpture on the display table. They built it using reclaimed junk, old computer scraps pulled straight from Predictix's recycling bins. Gears, wires, and LED lights arranged into pure mechanical beauty. A genius mechanical puzzle that shifted every time you solved a logic gate. It lit up in patterns proving complex recursive algorithms. The suited judges circled around with clipboards, asking very careful questions. Tyler handled the engineering, Sophie broke down the complex math. Together, those kids showed how it worked. When judges announced the results, they grabbed first place. Sophie stepped right up to the microphone for the winner's speech. Elena's heart just swelled. People assume the best teachers wear fancy suits and lecture from the front, Sophie said, her voice small yet crystal clear. But my greatest teacher wore a gray janitor's uniform and asked me brilliant questions on paper napkins. He taught me that real intelligence isn't something you hide, or use to prove you're better than everyone else. It's a gift you share. It's a tool that makes you braver. She locked eyes with Leo. Thank you for teaching me how to ask the right questions and showing me it's okay to not have every answer. Then she shifted her gaze to her mother. And thank you, Mom, for finally learning too. Elena wiped her eyes. All around her, parents and teachers were doing the exact same thing. After the ceremony ended, walking out to the car, Sophie gently slipped her small hand into Elena's. Are you proud of me? Elena completely stopped. She knelt straight down, getting eye level with her daughter. I've always been proud of you, but I am realizing that my pride isn't what truly matters. What matters is that you are proud of yourself, that you know exactly who you are, and what makes your brilliant mind light up. She looked at her daughter's face, taking in those sharp, intensely curious, luminous eyes. That is the actual achievement. Sophie squeezed her hard. Looking over her daughter's shoulder, Elena spotted Leo and Tyler waiting quietly by the car. A former janitor and his brilliant son. The very people who taught her what real success actually looked like. You and I know it's not corner offices, government contracts, or stock prices. But this raw moment, this connection, this undeniable truth. Later that same night, long after Sophie fell asleep, Elena stood quietly in her daughter's doorway. Her walls were completely covered with drawings now. Logic puzzles, mathematical patterns, and detailed sketches of the kinetic sculpture, a beautiful map of a genius mind finally set free. On the small desk, protected in a simple wooden frame, sat that very first paper napkin, a profound reminder of where true brilliance started. A brilliant janitor and a little girl. A beautifully simple question, and a genuine willingness to see someone for who they truly were. Elena always thought her ultimate achievement was becoming the youngest CEO in Predictix's corporate history. She had been entirely wrong. Her true greatest achievement was learning to be the mother that Sophie needed. Learning to finally value truth over reputation. Learning to see the quiet man in the basement as the brilliant hero he had always been. Those corporate predictive models could forecast market trends and resources with stunning accuracy. But they never could have predicted this. The way a simple napkin puzzle would actually save her company. Let's look at how a little girl's simple question exposed a 5-year corporate lie. Because the absolute sharpest minds, they don't always sit in those corner boardrooms. Sometimes they mop the basement floors, sometimes they're just 8 years old. Often they just need someone to look. Elena switched off her lamp, whispering into the dark. Thank you, Leo, for actually teaching us both. Miles away, inside a cramped Long Island City apartment, Leo tucked his son Tyler into bed. Dad, are you glad you went back? Leo paused. He remembered those long years mopping floors. He thought about the delayed vindication that made every single brutal shift completely worth it, and that brilliant little girl who noticed his mind when all the executives looked away. Yeah, kiddo, I really am, because they finally gave you your job back. Because I remembered who I am, he gently smoothed the blankets. And because I helped someone else remember exactly who they are too. Tyler grinned. Sophie is pretty cool. Yeah, she really is. Now get to sleep. Heading to his own bedroom, Leo stopped by the glass. The city lights burned bright outside. Out there in that glow was Predictix, Sophie's lab, and a future neither he nor the CEO saw coming. He finally knew that the greatest breakthroughs in life could never be predicted. They only get built, one single question at a time. One truth at a time, one scribbled napkin, and you and I know that was enough.